I'm going to be remaking Minecraft mobs into the Amazing Digital Circus. The first character I'll make is Pomni, and I'm going to use a villager to make her. First, let's get rid of this stuff because we don't need it. Now let's change the shape of her body and we'll start shaping her legs. Next, I'm going to give her some arms, and I'll just add a hand on the bottom here. Next, I'm going to change the shape of her head, and let's start to add her hat on the top as well. And I think that's a pretty good body, so now let's start to color her in. First, let's color her head white, and we'll do the same for her arms and legs as well. Now let's color in these yellow parts like this. Next, let's color in her clothes, and I'll make sure to add the blue spots on the other side. Now let's put these buttons that she has on the front of her shirt like this, and now it's time to give her a face. So first I'm gonna add her eyes like this, and I'm also gonna give her a strand of hair on each side of her head as well. And I think this is looking pretty good. Let's see how she looks in game. This is how Pomni looks in game. She doesn't look that bad. I like how I made her constantly looking around paranoid, just like how she is in the show. We'll just ignore the fact that she's bald on the back of her head though. I'm pretty sure her hat is supposed to cover that. In the show, Pomni throws up on the ground, so I made it so that when she hits you get the nausea effect. It is also said that Pomni doesn't like being touched, so I made it so that she runs away from enemies very quickly if she gets attacked. In the show, Pomni tries to escape the circus through a bunch of exit doors, so I made it so that Pomni can open doors by herself, just like a regular villager. Pomni also gets teleported to the void if you right-click her, because I just felt like adding that. I don't really know why. If you kill Pomni, she drops her red hand, which gets glitched in the first episode, so if you hold this hand out for yourself, you get teleported around randomly, sort of like you're glitching. And a fun fact about Pomni is that her favorite food is salmon, so you can also feed Pomni salmon. Overall, I think Pomni turned out pretty good and has a lot of interesting features. So because of this, I decided to give Pomni a 9 out of 10. Next, I'm gonna make Cain, and I'll use an evoker to make him. First, let's get rid of all this stuff that we don't need, and let's change the shape of his leg and bend it like this. Next, I'm gonna work on his arms, so let's just rotate this piece like this, and we'll give him a hand and copy this over to the other side as well. Next, I'm gonna change his head into the shape of some gums like this, and let's just add some teeth on the top in the same shape as well. Next, I'll give him his top hat on top of the mouth. Okay, now this is looking good, so let's give him some color. First, I'm gonna color his gums bright red, and we'll color the teeth white like this. Next, I'm gonna color in his eyes, and let's color his shirt a pinkish color as well. Okay, now this looks good, so let's just add some detail to his shirt right here, and we'll give him his different color eyeballs as well. Now let's give him his stick, because I forgot to do that. And I think that Cain is looking pretty good. Let's see how he looks in game. This is how Cain looks in game. He actually looks really good. Also ignore the cakes that are spawning around him. I'll explain that in a second. Since Cain is the host of the Digital Circus, I decided to make it so that Cain is completely invincible to all types of damage except for cactuses. Cain is also seen teleporting throughout the episode, so I made it so that Cain teleports away if he takes too much damage, similar to the TV people in my Skibbity videos. Cain also spawns cake randomly around him, as you can see, because he spawned a cake out of thin air in the first episode. Unfortunately, there is no bubble to eat this cake right now. We'll just have to wait until later for that. If Cain somehow manages to die, he drops a stick, which can be used to either remove any block you right-click on with it, or you can send any mob to the void if you right-click them as well. Overall, I think Cain turned out really good. He's definitely one of my favorite mobs I've made. So because of this, I decided to give Cain a 10 out of 10. He deserves it. The next character I'll make is Jax, and I'm gonna use a rabbit because Jax is a rabbit, I think. First, I'm gonna get rid of some of the stuff we don't need, and let's rearrange his body parts a little bit for now. Next, let's make his legs super tall like this, and we'll change the shape of his body to make it a bit taller as well. Now let's give him a neck like this, and I'll just change the shape of his head to make it a bit more round. Now let's just add his ears on the very top, and now it's time to give Jax some arms. And I think this is good, so let's give Jax some color. First, I'm gonna color his head purple, and we'll do the same for his arms and body as well. Now let's color his overalls a pinkish color, and we'll do the same for his legs like this. Next, I'm gonna color both of his hands a yellowish color, and we'll just give him two buttons here, and now it's time to add his face. First, I'm gonna give him a big yellow mouth, and let's just give him some eyes above that. I'm also gonna give him a couple eyebrows above his eyes like this, and I think this is looking pretty good. Let's see how he looks in game. This is how Jax looks in game. He honestly looks pretty similar to the actual show. The only difference is that he's obviously made of cubes though, so he could never be as good as the original. It was kind of hard for me to think of features to give Jax, so he only really has a couple. To start, Jax is super tall, as you can see, just like he is in the actual series, and you can also see Jax run away really quickly in the first episode, so I made it so that Jax is super fast in game as well. You can also ride on Jax's back for some reason. I'm not really sure why I added this. It just seems like something that he would be able to do. If you kill Jax, you get a rabbit's foot because he's a rabbit, so that's the less evil version of making him just drop rabbit meat. And overall, I think Jax looks pretty good, but he doesn't really have that many features. So because of this, I decided to give Jax an 8 out of 10. Next, I'm gonna make Ragatha, and I'm gonna use a witch to make her. First, let's get rid of some of the stuff we don't need, and I'm just gonna make her body a lot smaller for now, and I'll just add a few layers underneath as her dress. Next, I'm gonna give her an arm like this, and I'll just give her a hand on the bottom as well. Now let's copy this over to the other side, and next let's work on her head. First I'm gonna change the shape of it like this. Next I'm gonna start adding her hair on the side, and I'll just copy these hairs all around her head, and we'll also add her bow on the top like this. And I think this is a pretty good body, so now let's give her some color. First I'm gonna color her head and her arms in like this. Next let's just color her hair a reddish pink color as well. Now let's color her entire dress a purplish color, and we'll color the bow on top slightly darker. Next I'm gonna add the patches on her dress in the same color as the bow, and now let's add a bit more detail, and we'll start to give her a face. Alright, after like 5 tries, this is the face I'm going with. It still looks weird, but it's the best I'm gonna get. Now finally let's add a bit of texture, and I think this looks good. Let's see how she looks in game. This is how Ragatha looks in game. I definitely think her face looks a little weird. She also makes witch noises, which I'm not really sure if it fits her or not. It's kind of strange. Also, we're just gonna ignore the fact that you can see through her hair. Just pretend the back part here is fully covered. In the show, Ragatha gets attacked and becomes completely glitched out, so I decided to make it so that Ragatha glitches whenever she gets hit, which looks kind of funny more than glitchy. This is also the only feature that Ragatha has because I couldn't really think of anything else. If you kill Ragatha, she drops this red thing from the nether because it was supposed to be her hair, and overall I think Ragatha looks kind of cursed and she doesn't really have any features. So because of this, I'm going to give Ragatha a 6 out of 10. I just made her face look too weird. Next character I'll make is Gangle, and I'll make Gangle from a skeleton because they're both kind of built the same. First I'm gonna make her head a lot smaller like this, and now let's shape the head into a mask as well, and I think that's good, so let's just work on her left arm like this, and we'll make the right arm similar but rotate it in a different direction. Next I'm gonna make her legs a lot thinner, and we'll rotate the bottom part a little bit like this. Now let's copy this to the other side, and it's time to color her in. First I'm gonna draw a red spiral for her body like this, and I'm gonna color her arms and her legs the same color. Now let's add a bit of detail with a slightly lighter red, and next I'm gonna color in her mask, and now finally let's give her a face like this, and we'll also add a little bit more texture to her body as well, and I think that is looking pretty good. Let's see how she looks in game. This is how Gangle looks in game. Despite being very simple to make, I think she actually turned out pretty good. I will say that having the arms like this is kind of strange though. They don't really move that much. In the show, Gangle has at least 2 masks, the comedy mask and the tragedy mask, but she falls and breaks her comedy mask at the beginning of the first episode, so I decided to make it so that when Gangle dies, her comedy mask falls and reveals the tragedy mask. You may have also noticed that the comedy mask drops as an item when she dies, and if you decide to wear this comedy mask, you get speed 4 and jump boost 4 because those effects are kind of fun, I guess. The mask is also off-centered when you wear it, but we'll just ignore that. It's the only way I could make it fit. Overall, I think Gangle turned out pretty good, and I think her mask is a cool addition to the game. So because of this, I'm going to give Gangle a 9 out of 10. Next, I'm gonna make Kinger, and I'll use a snow golem to make him. First, I'm gonna get rid of these layers because we don't need them, and let's make the bottom smaller like this. Now let's add another part on top, and we'll make it way taller as well. Next, I'm gonna copy this part on top, and we'll bend it so he's hunched over a little bit. And now I'm just gonna add a part on the front that is gonna be his coat. Now let's add a piece for his head up here, and we'll add another part on top, and we'll also add the king thing on the very top like this. Next, I'm gonna change his neck area a little bit so that he can have his coat, and this looks pretty good. Now let's color him in. First, I'm gonna color his body a purplish color, and we'll just color in the rest of his coat as well. Now let's color his head slightly darker than his coat. Next, I'm gonna give him an eye, and we'll copy this over to the other side and rotate them a little bit as well. Now let's give him a hand, and we'll color it the same color as his coat. Next, we'll add a little bit of detail to his coat like this, and I think this is looking pretty good. Let's see how he looks in game. This is how Kinger looks in game. This guy is honestly a little bit larger than I thought he would be. I also decided to make it so that Kinger sways back and forth quickly, because in the show, he seems to be a little bit on edge. Wait, where did he go? Why is he hiding underneath these randomly colored blocks? Since Kinger seems to be crazy in the show, I decided to make it so that when you right-click Kinger, he shakes really quickly, similar to when he did this in the show. This also makes him look kind of funny if you just spam it. If you kill Kinger, I made it so that he drops 1 scaffolding, and you might be wondering why I chose this random item, and it's because it has a checkerboard pattern on it, and Kinger is a chess piece. Overall, I don't think Kinger looks that bad, but he's also not the best looking mob. So because of this, I decided to give Kinger a 7 out of 10. The next character I'll make is Zooble, and I'll use a blaze to make them because they both have a bunch of body parts. First, let's remove all these because we don't need them, and I'm just gonna make the first leg like this, and we'll just add this hook shape on the bottom of the right leg, and we'll also add a spiral on the top. Next, I'm gonna give Zooble a body, and we'll just copy the spiral for their neck as well. Next, I'm gonna work on making a triangle shape for the head, and I'm also gonna add a left arm like this, and we'll also make a right arm that has a lot less spirals. Now I'm gonna color Zooble in, so first let's color the body yellowish, and we'll color Zooble's head in pink. Next, I'm gonna color the rest of the body a bunch of different colors. Now let's add some spots on Zooble's body like this, and now I'm gonna add a few more parts on the body that I missed, and I think that looks good. So now let's just add their eyes like this, and we'll also add this zigzag thing that comes off the top of their head as well. Now let's add the Y on the other part of the head, and we'll give it some stripes as well. And I think this is looking pretty good. Let's see how Zooble looks in game. This is how Zooble looks in game. I'm honestly kind of surprised that I was able to make them look good with all the different pieces. I will say the blaze noises are really annoying though. I definitely should have removed them. But other than that, this actually did turn out pretty good. In the show, Zooble gets broken into a bunch of pieces, so I decided to make it so that when you kill Zooble, it breaks them into a bunch of pieces as well. Ignore the fact that they're able to stand back up. You also might have noticed that Zooble drops a Zooble head when they die, and you might be wondering what the Zooble head does. No, you are not able to wear it. Instead, you can eat the Zooble head and you will gain bad luck for a minute. This is because Zooble seems kinda unlucky in the first episode. Overall, I think Zooble turned out a lot better than I thought they would, so because of this, I decided to give Zooble an 8 out of 10. Next, I'm gonna make Bubble, and I'll use a Vex because I made Kane from an Evoker. First, I'm gonna get rid of all this Vex stuff, and I'm just gonna generate a circle like this. Now let's color this circle a purplish color, and I'm gonna rotate this circle a bunch of different times until we have a bubble. Next, I'm gonna remove some pieces like this so we have some teeth, and let's just color these teeth white so we can see them. Next, I'm gonna add an eye on the side, and we'll color it reddish brown. And now let's just copy this to the other side, and I think that looks good. Let's see how Bubble looks in game. This is how Bubble looks in game. This is probably the least Minecrafty looking mob I've ever made. The teeth still look Minecrafty though. I didn't really add that much detail to them. Since Bubble is supposed to be Kane's sidekick, I decided to make it so that when you right click Kane, he spawns in Bubble, similar to how the actual Evoker spawns Vexes. Bubble is also seen licking stuff in the show, so I decided to make it so that you get licked by Bubble if he attacks you as well. If you kill Bubble, he has a popping animation, which actually looks kinda cool. And you might have noticed that he drops an ender pearl, and that's just because it's the same shape as a bubble. That's really it. Overall, I don't think Bubble looks that bad, but he's a little bit weird compared to my regular mobs. So because of this, I'm going to give Bubble a 7 out of 10. Subscribe if you want me to make the rest of the characters.